Hi everyone, thanks for watching the JB Arts YouTube channel. Today we've got some glow-in-the-dark painting. So this is a really cool activity, and what we're going to do is I'm actually going to do 4 different examples to give you an idea of the different things that you can do. You have some consideration, like for example, you can't just paint the entire canvas or painting in glow-in-the-dark, or it'll just be a glow-in-the-dark rectangle. You really need to be selective on what you make glow-in-the-dark. Furthermore, the concentration of glow-in-the-dark will glow more or less, so we can get some really neat effects with only putting it on lightly and then other areas much more strongly. So we're constantly thinking about positive, negative space. That means your background versus your subject matter, or we're going to consider what is your painting going to look like during the day versus what is it going to look like at night or when the lights are out when it glows. Those can be 2 entirely different things. The first technique I'm going to show you with the glow-in-the-dark paint is to paint your entire painting with natural colors and then just apply your glow-in-the-dark paint in the selected areas that you want. So we'll see in a moment when I'm done painting the jellyfish. I'm just going to put glow-in-the-dark paint on top of them. The glow-in-the-dark paint is sort of semi-transparent. It dries and almost sort of vanishes into the painting, so it doesn't take away from the effect too much of the original painting. Again, just layering the glow-in-the-dark over top will really make sort of a nice finished product. Here, when we're taking a look at my painting of the jellyfish, I'm trying to have my brush strokes quite loose. I'm painting more with the brush itself. I'm putting white on one side of the brush and then the pink sort of on the other side when we're filling in or getting more of the tentacle bits sort of coming off of it. You'll notice that the colors sort of are more textured. They're less brushed in or smoothed out. I try and get the top part of the jellyfish a bit smoother, but you see sort of the dangly bits out the bottom. They're the ones that have a lot of the texture and color variety, and they sort of swoop and sway. I do that by holding the end of the brush and letting the brush do the work. So you can see I just sort of twizzle the brush as I go and give it sort of a squiggle, and that gives me sort of the natural effect of sort of their swaying in the water and just sort of dangling along behind them. Here we go. I'm adding the glow-in-the-dark paint. In some areas I'm making it much more intense or much thicker. I know when it dries it'll disappear quite a bit, and also when the paint dries the glow-in-the-dark will be more intense as well. I'll show you what the glow-in-the-dark looks like soon enough. Now the camera has an interesting effect. When I turned the camera on and then turned out the lights, the glow-in-the-dark disappeared for a moment, and then it flashed really bright and then dissipated quite quickly. But to the naked eye, you could see no change in the... They do fade over time, but we're talking about hours. It's just really interesting how the camera would suddenly pick it up and then fade away. You'll see it in the clip in just a moment. So now I've finished a lot of the glow-in-the-dark on the jellyfish, and now I'm just starting to accent the glow in the water. And there we go, that's sort of the nice finished product, and you can see how it faded out. Cool, on to the next one. So this one is the haunted house. With the haunted house, it actually started out as you see, a sort of park and almost like an apartment building. There's going to be other little buildings beside it. What I'm trying to showcase in this one here is sort of how you can change your scene from a daytime scene during the day and then a nighttime scene when you turn out the lights. So in this one here, I got partway into my painting and realized, why don't I do like a haunted house scene instead? So in a moment you'll notice I quickly sort of change gears. I fill in a bit more sky and around the building and such, a little more sloppy as I sort of realize that I should do sort of a ground here. So there we go, I painted out a huge chunk, and somewhere in here I've realized that, man, I should really just do a haunted house. So there you go, you can see where I painted the ground right over top of the bottom, and this is where at any time in your painting, especially with acrylic, you can go back and change it repeatedly until you get just the way you want. My advice would be cover all of your background color first and then see what you get. Now I'm using a fan brush here to just sort of give me a little bit more of a grass texture. I'm not looking to overdo it, I just want to make a neat example. Now the house is just going to be a simple house with a brick wall. I'm trying to make little accents of things that we can make show up in the middle of the night, or when we turn out the light and the glow is really happening. So I want to put in little tiny details all over the place, like the windows should glow and they should look different from the stars, and then I'll paint in a sun, and then the sun will turn into a moon at night, so you can hide the glow in the dark with things that sort of already exist. I'm going to put little spirits and hands coming out of things, as you'll see soon enough. In the house, you'll notice I put sort of the base gray in, and now I'm going back and put in the details. And my first couple of colors in the window I didn't really like, so I went back and did it a couple of other times. The best part about acrylic is that you can layer in. You can see where I sort of put an under of brown in the dirt for the pathway, and then sort of brightened it up with a bit more of like a sandy yellowy kind of color. And at any time you can go back and draw right over. I like to use watercolor pencil crayon, but you can totally use pencil. I wouldn't recommend pencil crayon. Again, I like watercolor pencil crayons best for acrylic paintings. Go back with a sort of a finer brush and doing the little details, so a couple little creepy tombstones, and then a whole bunch of pumpkins that when you turn out the light you should have sort of the eyes glow and the mouth glow. With changing your painting from a day scene into a night scene, you really want to think of things that can extra glow. Things like light stands or car lights, windows, anything that sort of illuminates at night would be really good to use to sort of accent your picture. Start the trees, and you want to use a fine tip probably around. You can use a tiny flat as well. Sometimes they can even give you skinnier, longer lines. They hold a little bit more paint. But round gives you a little bit more flexibility to do sort of the twisty, gnarly kind of tree that we've got going here, where the branches kind of go a little bit more chaotic and all over the place and a little more creepy. So in the future I will put on glow in the dark in a bit of the tree as well. You could always put something like an owl in the tree, and then when it glows the eyes would glow nice and bright. I've seen quite a few people do these kind of trees or bushes, and then in the bushes and stuff they'd have glowing eyes. Yeah, those work really well, just to give you a couple of ideas. Now here's where I changed the window color, and I ended up not liking that window color much either. I sort of made the wood frame kind of color, and then I'll put more of a stronger sort of glowing yellow, like someone's actually home waiting for Halloween to arrive. There we go, there's sort of the yellow. A little bit more, I don't know, inviting for a spooky place. Put in the detail or the brickwork, the patchy work on the cobblestone wall. Brighten up my sun. I put sort of a base yellowy kind of color in, and then blended in the rest of my colors, and put that same glowy color into the windows. There we go, just doing little touch-ups now. Alright, I've started on a little ghost. As you see, the glow-in-the-dark paint doesn't show up all that much on sort of the day, and it disappears more as it dries. We're only putting on little accents just to show sort of the shape of the pumpkin a bit, and that they all have little eyes and things. There we go, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm using the back of the paintbrush to put on little dots. You get about 3 or 4 little dots before you have to reload, so you're constantly going back and getting more paint. And you don't need a big blob, just a tiny one, and that'll give you very small stars, and even more rounded than if you tried to paint it with a paintbrush. Well, there's a bit of an owl I put in after all, or at least the silhouette of one. And I think I put in a cat somewhere too. The way I do the painting, I'm going to turn off the light and then have just an illuminated light. So I'm actually painting in the dark and then clicking on the light and adjusting my picture. So when the light goes out, there's that instant flash of sort of the coloring, but to the naked eye, when the light's out, I can see it clearly the entire time. It doesn't just fade away like it's showing in the camera. So I've got a little bit extra time to go in and pluck in exactly where it needs to be a bit stronger or more details, or there's too much darkness or negative space if the image isn't reading quite right. To check your painting, you want to go into the darkest room in the house. That could be the basement, could be a closet, could be the bathroom. Anywhere that you think is really dark will give you your best results. The next fun idea I see a lot of the time is people putting in a secret message. So here I've just got an abstract painting that was left behind. I actually really like that abstract painting, and I thought it would work really well for this particular activity. So right now the paint hasn't had a lot of time to absorb any light. The longer you can leave it to absorb light, the more brilliant the colors will be. So it just simply says keep out as like a warning to put in your room. The Magic Forest one is probably the most popular style, and it actually starts off with glow-in-the-dark paint, and you're putting on many layers of glow-in-the-dark paint versus regular paint to try and get sort of a bit of depth to what you're doing. You might notice I put on sort of a first coat. I did let it dry for a moment, and then I put on a secondary or a tertiary layer. I keep on layering these things in until I get them just the way that I want them. A fan brush here to try and just get it to wisp out a little bit. I really want the glow in the dark to sort of fade and then become a lot more intense. So I'm going to continue to layer on more glow. When I'm happy with the amount of glow that I have for my first sort of version of this painting, I'm then going to start putting on real paint, and that's going to cover up the glow effect so I can get nice strong lines, or I can use that other paint to sort of fade in and help it sort of disappear. So right now with the water, yeah, it's water. It's painted yellow. I'm using that to sort of harden up a bit of the line and fade out. I like the bit of black. I'm actually going to put transparent blue, so I'm going to either water or use medium, acrylic medium, to thin out the color so it goes on transparent. You can see through it, and that means the glow itself is going to show through too. They do have some colors of glow in the dark, but I find really just the one yellow one works the best. And there are some other paints out there that they've gotten a lot better, but really the natural sort of glow colors, it works the best. So if you put that underneath and then put your transparent layers on top of it, I find it doesn't hinder the glow effect. Painting in the sky. So the sky, again, I'm going to do bright colors. It's going to go against the glow in the dark. It's going to kind of fade in and break up the glow in the dark, and as it covers over it, it won't be glow in the dark in those areas anymore. That's why I'm sort of wisping the paintbrush into it. I'm not letting them quite connect, but they do cover up in little areas. This layering effect is going to give me more depth to my picture, and with glow in the dark being more intense or more layered, it will be brighter and hopefully stand out a lot more. At the moment I haven't done a whole lot of checking, like turning out the light and seeing what I've got, because I know as soon as I put on my blue background, I'm going to end up putting more glow in the dark on top of that. Next we've got some trees. Now the trees are going to break up the glow in the dark quite nicely, so there'll be sort of strong black lines when the light goes out. So here I've switched to being painting in the dark, adding more glow onto my work, layering it in a bit more to maximize the amount of glow. There we go. You can kind of see it there. I have to go back in, strengthen some of the negative spaces that are going to be black, like in my trees, as well as go back and put in more glow in places where it doesn't quite show up. I also have a bit of a unicorn that I want to do a silhouette of in the back. So the negative space will be glowing, and then the silhouette of the unicorn in the middle will be dark. So it'll be great. As the painting's coming to a close, here are some final thoughts. You're really painting two paintings here. You're painting one that you can see during the day, and you're painting one that you can see at night. Now, it needs to absorb the most amount of light it can, so it'll be brilliant when you turn out the lights. So put your painting near a lamp when you hang it. Put it somewhere and get some natural sunlight, and put it into a room that can be, really dark when you turn out the light, something with some, good curtains and such. Play around, experiment. It's easy to paint over the glow-in-the-dark paint with acrylic paint. Next, we're putting in the last final touches, the little details, the unicorn, painting in a silhouette of the unicorn. Now, I could have painted a beautiful Majestics or a rainbow unicorn way off in the distance, but for this, I thought we'd just keep it simple so the silhouette matched what you see here to when the glow happens when I turn out the light. Very soon I'm going to switch to painting in the dark, and then click on the light, click off the light, click on the light, and see what it looks like. Putting a little bit of glow in the silhouette of the tree as well, just on the highlighted side, help sort of break up the painting a little bit, make it a bit more interesting, because over in those areas it's quite dark still. There we go. I'm exposing it to light. The first flash isn't very brilliant. The second flash of light is where the picture really shines. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching the JB Arts YouTube channel. If you like what you see, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Have a wonderful day.